Ramesses the Great Ancient Egyptian Ṛiʔa-masē-sə. Ancient Egyptian pronunciations ṛiʔa-masē-sə 1303 BC, 1213 BC, commonly known as Ramesses the Great, was an Egyptian pharaoh. He was the third ruler of the Nin. In ancient Greek sources, he is called Ozymandias, derived from the first part of his Egyptian language regnal name, user matter Setiper. Ramesses was also referred to as the Great Ancestor by successor pharaohs and the Egyptian people. For the early part of his reign, he focused on building cities, temples, and monuments. After establishing the city of Pi, Ramesses in the Nile Delta, he designated it as Egypt's new capital and used it as the main staging point for his campaigns in Syria. Estimates of his age at death vary, although 90 or 91 is considered to be the most likely figure. Upon his death, he was buried in a tomb KV7 in the Valley of the Kings. His body was later moved to the royal cache, where it was discovered by archaeology. Ramesses I was not born a prince. His grandfather Ramesses I was a vizier and military officer during the reign of Pharaoh Horemheb, who appointed Ramesses I as his successor. At that time, Ramesses II was about 11 years old. After Ramesses I died, his son, Seti I became king, and designated his son Ramesses II as prince regent at about the age of 14. Ramesses' date of accession to the throne is recorded as Derhadai Shemu, day 27, which most Egyptologists believe to be 31 May 1279 BC. The Jewish historian Josephus, in his book Contra Appianum, which included material from Manetho's Aegyptiaca, assigned Rames. In 1994 AJ, Pedon proposed that Ramesses I died between Ci Akhet Day 3 and T Akhet Day 13 on the basis of Theban graffito. 854 plus 855 equated to Merneptah's Year 1 C Akhet Day 2. The workman's village of Deir el Medina preserves a fragment of a mid-20th. The feast called Nunnabo, sailing, was clearly observed in Thebes or at Deir el Medina during the Ramesside period in remembrance of the passing of deified royals. The sailing of Ahmose Nefertari was celebrated on Itui Shemu 15, the sailing of Seti I on. Early in his life, Ramesses II embarked on numerous campaigns to restore possession of previously held territories lost to the Nubians and Hittites and to secure Egypt's borders. He was also responsible for suppressing some Nubian revolts and carrying out. In his second year, Ramesses II decisively defeated the Shirdan Sea pirates who were wreaking havoc along Egypt's Mediterranean coast by attacking cargo-laden vessels traveling the sea routes to Egypt. The Shirdan people probably came from the coast of Io. The immediate antecedents to the Battle of Kadesh were the early campaigns of Ramesses III into Canaan. His first campaign seems to have taken place in the 4th year of his reign and was commemorated by the erection of what became the first of the Commemo. The Battle of Kadesh in his 5th regnal year was the climactic engagement in a campaign that Ramesses fought in Syria against the resurgent Hittite forces of Muwatalli-Su. The pharaoh wanted a victory at Kadesh both to expand Egypt's frontiers into Syria. Egypt's sphere of influence was now restricted to Canaan while Syria fell into Hittite hands. Canaanite princes, seemingly encouraged by the Egyptian incapacity to impose their will and goaded on by the Hittites, began revolts against Egypt. Ramesses II. Ramesses extended his military successes in his 8th and 9th years. He crossed the Dog River Nahr al-Kalb and pushed north into Amurru. His armies managed to march as far north as Dapur, where he had a statue of himself erected. The Egyptian pharaoh. In year 21 of Ramesses's reign, he concluded a peace treaty with the Hittites known to modern scholars as the Treaty of Kadesh. Though this treaty settled the disputes over Canaan, its immediate impetus seems to have been a diplomatic crisis that occurred. Ramesses II also campaigned south of the first cataract of the Nile into Nubia. When Ramesses was about 22 years old, 2 of his own sons, including Amen-Her-Khepshef, accompanied him in at least one of those campaigns. By the time of Ramesses, Nubia had. During the reign of Ramesses II, the Egyptians were evidently active on a 300 kilometer 190 miles stretch along the Mediterranean coast at least as far as Zayat el Rakam, where remains of a fortress described by its texts as built on Libyan's land have. As of year 28 of his reign, Ramesses II favored the god Amun above all other divinities, as evidenced in the texts of two separate ostraca discovered at Deir el-Medina. By tradition, in the 30th year of his reign, Ramesses celebrated a jubilee called the. In the third year of his reign, Ramesses started the most ambitious building project after the pyramids, which were built almost 1500 years earlier. Ramesses built extensively from the delta to Nubia, covering the land with buildings in a way no monarch. Some of the activities undertaken were focused on remodeling or usurping existing works, improving masonry techniques, and using art as propaganda. In Thebes, the ancient temples were transformed so that each of them reflected honor to Ramesses as a Sai. The temple complex built by Ramesses II between Kurna and the desert has been known as the Ramesseum since the 19th century. The Greek historian Diodorus Siculus marveled at the gigantic temple, now no more than a few ruins, oriented northwest and south-east. In 1255 BC, Ramesses and his queen Nefertari had traveled into Nubia to inaugurate a new temple, Abu Simbel. It is said to be ego cast into stone. The man who built it intended not only to become Egypt's greatest pharaoh, but also one of its deities. As well as the temples of Abu Simbel, Ramesses left other monuments to himself in Nubia. His early campaigns are illustrated on the walls of the Temple of Beit el Wali, now relocated to New Kalabsha. Other temples dedicated to Ramesses are Deir and Jerf H. The colossal statue of Ramesses III dates back 3,200 years and was originally discovered in 6 pieces in a temple near Memphis, Egypt, weighing some 83 ton 82 long ton, 91 short ton. It was transported, reconstructed, and erected in Ramesses Square in. The Egyptian scholar Manetho 3rd century BC attributed Ramesses a reign of 66 years and 2 months. By the time of his death, aged about 90 years, Ramesses was suffering from severe dental problems and was plagued by arthritis and hardening of the arter. Originally, Ramesses II was buried in the tomb KV7 in the Valley of the Kings, but because of looting in the valley, priests later transferred the body to a holding area, wrapped it, and placed it inside the tomb of Queen Ahmose Inhapi. 72 hours. The pharaoh's mummy reveals an aquiline nose and strong jaw. It stands at about 1.7 meters 5 feet 7 in. Gaston Maspero, who first unwrapped a mummy of Ramesses II, writes, "On the temples there are a few sparse hairs, but at the pole the hair is quite T." During the examination, scientific analysis revealed battle wounds, old fractures, arthritis, and poor circulation. Citation needed. Ramesses I's arthritis is believed to have made him walk with a hunched back for the last decades of his life. A 2004 stud. The tomb of the most important consort of Ramesses was discovered by Ernesto Schiaparelli in 1904. Although it had been looted in ancient times, the tomb of Nefertari is extremely important because its magnificent wall painting decoration is regarded as In 1995, Professor Kent Weeks, head of the Theban mapping project, rediscovered Tomb KV5. It has proven to be the largest tomb in the Valley of the Kings, and originally contained the mummified remains of some of this king's estimated 52 sons. Approximatal. Ramesses is the basis for Percy Bysshe Shelley's poem Ozymandias. Diodorus Siculus gives an inscription on the base of one of his sculptures, "Ask King of Kings am I, Ozymandias. If anyone would know how great I am and where I lie, let him surpass one of." Though scholars generally do not recognize the biblical portrayal of the Exodus as an actual historical event, various historical pharaohs have been proposed as the corresponding ruler at the time the story takes place, with Ramesses II as the most popular.